So, Rebecca, you are lying on the floor.
That's right.
With pillows and a giant comforter. Your feet are up on the chair I got you. Mm-hmm. The microphone is low and in your face. Mm-hmm. You have your arms to the side like a Jesus Christ pose. I'm sorry for using that reference for my favorite Jewish person on the planet. And I'm also sitting on the floor because in order for me to see you, I have to sit on the floor and look under my desks so I can actually see your face. Otherwise, it'd be kind of weird. So the reason why you are doing this, it's sort of like an extreme Freudian patient position, right? Yeah. Instead of a chaise lounge, you're like fully encapsulated in a cocoon of womb-like warmth and cushiness. And the reason why you're in this is because last time we podcasted, you talked about how you had the same nightmare every night of your life. And I said, wait, what? Like, it's one thing to have nightmares, right? Which a lot of us have. It's another thing to have nightmares as a result of your trauma. It's another thing to have it every night. And I did not know that you were suffering in that way. I knew you were suffering, but not to that extent. I think you've effectively, I don't know, protected me from that information, I'm guessing.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And so I said on the air, I said, do you want to talk about it? And you said, well, that's a whole thing that we're going to have to do a whole setup. It's going to be a whole episode. If we get into that, I can't just briefly talk about it. I have to get in the mood. There's going to be aftercare, the whole 9 yards. And so after we stopped recording, I said, did you want to do that? Only if you want to. And you said, yeah, let's do it. So then you texted me yesterday and said, okay, I'm going to need to lie down. I'm going to need a high-protein meal afterwards. It's going to be a big deal. I know my energy level isn't going to be great, or, I'm going to be struggling. So here we are. We've set you up, and I'm sitting Indian style. Is that a offensive term?
I don't know.
Crisscross
applesauce.
Right. I'm sitting crisscross applesauce with my microphone bent low, and you're even lower on the ground.
What? And I just knocked over the water.
And so let's get into it. Let's talk about your nightmares, and I'm guessing whatever else you want to talk about in terms of your traumas, right?
Yeah.
So let's do that. What do you say?
Yes.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Hahn. I'm a therapist and a professor. Who are you, Rebecca?
I'm Rebecca Bloom. I'm on this show once a month. I've been on for like 5 years.
Well, you've been on the podcast sporadically since the very beginning. I mean, you came out the first time you came out. Actually, I wanted you to be on the podcast in 2009, but you recommended your friend who was an art therapist, and she came on and talked about art therapy. And then you came on later, maybe 10, 12 years ago or something.
Yeah. So, yeah, and you and I, when the Me Too movement hit hardcore, or maybe it was during, oh my God, I like to drink beer hearings. What was his name? I'm spacing.
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh. I was like, I've got shit to say. And we kind of played with it 5 years ago, and it didn't really happen. And then
you've been coming on more regularly for...
Yeah, I've been coming on, yeah. But, that sense of like, when do I tell my story? What do I say publicly? We decided that this would be patron only, just because of what I could possibly reveal. Yeah, so here I am on the floor of your very nice house.
And you can see the underbelly of my workstation with all the wires.
He, she's, and they, thems, and everything in between. If you could only see under Kirk's table, it is like a technology so organized, so many zip ties. It's unbelievable. And the power strip is connected to the table, which is next level, so it's not on the floor. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, one of the things about moving to this house and buying a house is that I can get my podcasting station fully optimized, and that involves a lot of wire management.
It's a lot. I mean, it's like I am in shock.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is going to be a patron-only episode, and if you want to hear this episode, you have to become a patron of the podcast by going to patreon.com. Do it now. Do it now.
I became a patron this week.
Yeah. So you could actually comment. That's another thing actually I want to do is I want to pull back from general social media, and yet I still want to interact with people who listen to the podcast, and Patreon just feels like the natural place. It's much easier to keep the trolls out, and it just kind of makes sense as a place for me and you and the other co-hosts to have conversations with the listeners.
So if you want to chat later about this episode, I'll be on Patreon to chat.
Yeah. So you can comment below and we can have a conversation. I think you can DM directly. Someone could DM you directly on Patreon, that kind of thing. So yeah, become a patron of the podcast if you want. And everyone else, this episode will end, and take care of yourself because you deserve it. Why should they take care of themselves, Rebecca?
I like you, even with all your faults.